What if I told you that 1976 had some of the catchiest songs you've never heard of? When you see a title like 10 Forgotten One-Hit Wonders from 1976, you're probably wondering, were these songs actually hits back then? Why did they disappear? And most importantly, are they worth listening to today? The answer is absolutely yes. These weren't just random songs that scraped the bottom of the charts. These were legitimate hits that dominated radio stations, sold hundreds of thousands of copies, and had people singing along in their cars. These tracks somehow slipped through the cracks of music history. Today we're bringing them back from the dead, and I guarantee you'll be humming at least 3 of these by the end of this video. 1. Afternoon Delight by Starland Vocal Band.
Delight. My motto's always been when it's right, why wait until the middle of a cold dark.
Let's kick things off with a song that sounds innocent, but definitely isn't. Afternoon Delight by Starland Vocal Band shot straight to #1 in August 1976, and it stayed there for 2 weeks. The harmonies were sweet, the melody was infectious, and millions of Americans had no idea they were singing about daytime romance. The band formed specifically around this song, and while they tried to follow it up, nothing else came close to matching its success. Today you might recognize it from movies like Anchorman, but back then it was the soundtrack to summer barbecues across America. 2. Love Is Alive by Gary Wright.
When I'm thinking of time to get ready to realize just.
From suggestive lyrics to spiritual awakening, Gary Wright's Love Is Alive took listeners on a completely different journey. This wasn't just another love song. It was a synthesizer-driven meditation that climbed to #2 on the charts. Wright, who had been a member of the British rock band Spooky Tooth, went solo and created something that sounded like it came from another planet. The song's ethereal quality and Wright's falsetto vocals created an atmosphere that was both romantic and mystical. While Wright continued making music, he never again captured the magic that made Love Is Alive such a phenomenon. 3. More, More, More by Andrea True Connection.
I really feel, get the cameras rolling, get the action going.
Speaking of phenomena, Andrea True Connection's More, More, More proved that disco could come from the most unexpected places. Andrea True wasn't primarily a musician. She was an adult film actress who happened to be in Jamaica with some leftover advertising money. Instead of letting it go to waste, she decided to record a song. The result was a disco anthem that reached #4 and became a dance floor staple. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that someone known for explicit films had created one of the year's most played radio hits. True tried to capitalize on the success, but lightning rarely strikes twice in the music industry. 4. Fernando by ABBA. Wait.
Not ashamed to say the roar of guns and cannons almost made me cry.
You might be thinking, everyone knows Fernando, but here's the twist. While ABBA remains superstars, Fernando represents something unique in their catalog. This wasn't the typical ABBA sound that dominated the late 70s. Instead, it was a haunting ballad about war and memory that showcased a more serious side of the Swedish group. The song hit #13 in the United States, but it was their storytelling that made it special. Unlike their dance hits, Fernando painted vivid pictures of soldiers and battles, proving that ABBA could be more than just a disco act. Yet this narrative style rarely appeared in their later work, making Fernando a beautiful anomaly. 5. Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Eyes look up to the skies and see.
Before you start typing angry comments, hear me out. Yes, Queen became legendary, and yes, Bohemian Rhapsody is now considered one of the greatest songs ever written. But in 1976, this was the weirdest thing on radio. A 6-minute opera rock hybrid with no chorus. Record labels thought Freddie Mercury had lost his mind. The song peaked at #9 in the United States, and while it was successful, nobody could have predicted it would become the cultural phenomenon it is today. In the context of 1976, this was an experimental risk that could have easily been forgotten like so many other ambitious failures. 6. Silly Love Songs by Wings.
Some people wanna fill the world with silly love songs.
Paul McCartney had something to prove in 1976. Critics kept saying his post-Beatles work was too lightweight, too commercial, too silly. So what did he do? He wrote Silly Love Songs, a direct response to his critics that became his biggest solo hit. The song reached #1 and stayed there for 5 weeks, but it also marked a turning point. McCartney was essentially saying, "You want silly? I'll give you silly, and it'll be brilliant." The bass line was hypnotic, the harmonies were perfect, and the message was clear. There's nothing wrong with writing songs about love. While Wings had other hits, nothing quite captured this perfect balance of defiance and craftsmanship. 7. Dreamw Weaver by Gary Wright.
Just close my eyes again.
Gary Wright appears twice on this list, and for good reason. While Love Is Alive showcased his spiritual side, Dreamw Weaver revealed his ability to create pure escapism. This song reached #2 and became the ultimate late-night radio track. Wright's use of synthesizers created a floating, dreamlike quality that transported listeners to another realm. The song's popularity during the CB radio craze of the mid-70s wasn't coincidental. It was the perfect soundtrack for long-distance truckers driving through the night. Wright's 2 hits proved he understood the power of atmosphere in popular music, even if he couldn't sustain that success. 8. Play That Funky Music by Wild Cherry. Sometimes the best songs come from the most unexpected advice. Wild Cherry was a rock band struggling to find their sound until an audience member shouted, "Play some funky music, white boy." Lead singer Rob Parisi went home and wrote "Play That Funky Music" around that phrase. The song shot to #1 and became an instant classic. But it also created a problem. How do you follow up a song that perfectly captures a moment in time? Wild Cherry tried, but they'd already said everything they needed to say in one perfect track. The song's success story became more famous than the band itself. 9. Don't Go Breaking My Heart by Elton John and Kiki D. Elton John was already a superstar by 1976, but Don't Go Breaking My Heart represented something different in his catalog. This duet with Kiki D was pure joy, a celebration of musical chemistry that hit #1 and reminded everyone why Elton John was special. The song was originally written for Dusty Springfield, but when she passed, Kiki D stepped in and created magic. While both artists continued their careers, they never recaptured the lightning-in-a-bottle feeling of this collaboration. It remains a perfect snapshot of mid-70s optimism and musical partnership. 10. Lowdown by Boz Scaggs.
Run around, hanging with the crowd, putting your business in the street and talking out loud.
Let's end with sophistication. Boz Scaggs' Lowdown reached #3 and introduced mainstream audiences to a smoother, more refined version of rock and roll. This wasn't the raw energy of punk or the escapism of disco. This was grown-up music for grown-up problems. Scaggs' voice was smooth as silk. The production was immaculate, and the song's themes of urban alienation struck a chord with listeners navigating the complexities of modern life. While Scaggs had other hits, Lowdown represented the peak of his artistic and commercial success. A perfect blend of accessibility and sophistication that's rare in popular music. These 10 songs prove that 1976 was more than just a transition year between the experimental 70s and the commercial 80s. It was a moment when artists were willing to take risks, when radio was open to unusual sounds, and when audiences were hungry for something different. Each of these tracks dominated the airwaves, sold millions of copies, and created memories that lasted lifetimes. The fact that they've been overshadowed by other hits doesn't diminish their impact. It just means there's more great music waiting to be rediscovered. If this trip back to 1976 got you excited about forgotten classics, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into music history. What's your favorite forgotten hit from the 70s? Drop it in the comments below, and maybe it'll be featured in our next video. Trust me, once you start digging into the archives, you'll realize that every year was packed with incredible music that deserves another listen.